Good evening, everyone. Sinful here. Tonight's story is called The Man in the Woods. Let's begin. This story is long, so I'll try to chop it down the best I can. I would like to note that ever since these events have occurred, my brother and I have devoted the past 3 years traveling the northwest section of the United States and just talking to people and writing their stories. I guess I should start from the beginning. I am male at the time. I was 20. My brother Ethan was 17. But not an older 17. We're talking a fresh, just got my license last year 17. So one night Ethan decided to drive a town over from our little farm town we'll just call G-Town. The other farm town exists about 30 miles from us, and it's called Farmersville. Ethan had gone to Farmersville to visit his girlfriend Sarah. He had left out around 3, and it was now 8. My mom, whom I was living with at the time after I had gotten kicked out of my apartment, she had told me to let him know to be home around 8. So obviously when he hadn't called or shown up, she got pissed. Now my mom is a profound hardcore Christian. Most would call her a Jesus freak. "God blessed boy," she said angrily and looked at me. I knew exactly what she was going to tell me. So I grabbed my keys and I walked my piece of shit Mustang, sitting in the dark of the alley. I got in my car and I drove to the next town, in which had no problem finding her house, as I had dated her older sister Kirsty 3 years prior. I go up to the door and I knock, and ultimately greeted by Kirsty. We make awkward conversation for a bit, before I ask her if Ethan is still around. She then replies no. "He left 30 minutes ago for home, and you haven't seen him?" I felt my heart drop to my stomach. Mom had called him 7 or 8 times, and to her disgust it went straight to voicemail. Where could my little brother have gone? I thought to myself. I then looked to Kirsty and said my goodbyes, and wished her luck, pretending to enjoy our now ended conversation, and went back to my pathetic excuse for a car. Off the record, I upgraded recently. But the thought returned, where the hell are you? There was only one way in and one way out of this town, and it was on the pike, which has been surrounded by cornfields and woods, like deep woods, the kind where people who didn't know the way around would easily get lost, never to be found. It's happened here before. Between these fields and woods were dotted with small houses. Some looked to have been abandoned for years. I then pulled out of her driveway and checked the one gas station in this town. To my defeat, absolutely nothing. I then exited the town, heading back for mine. Around I looked at the time. It was 7:30 p.m. I left 25 minutes ago, and still no luck. I was about a mile down the pike when I came close to a house, looking pretty abandoned in front of it. In front of that house sat my brother's car. What the fuck is he doing here? I thought. I pulled in behind his car, dying to give him a mouthful of his own teeth, as his ass dragged me out of the house in the beginning of winter. I approached his 2000 Honda Civic and knocked at the window. No Ethan. I looked down to see his tires slashed. This startling me, so I approached the house, using my now dying cell phone as a source of light. I believe it was around 10%, but whatever, it was dying. I entered the house. As I stepped on this porch, the rotting wood form beneath me groaned. It sounded as if it were angry. A cool breeze hit my uncovered face. I grabbed the icy cold doorknob, opening the house, as an odor of dust and rot and mildew hit me. The place had been abandoned for years. I entered and began to explore as I searched the house, high and low, attic to basement. Found old bottles, used weed bags, as well as needles and old beds and furniture. No Ethan. I looked out of the kitchen window, which looked towards the backyard. Behind the house was a patch of deep woods. Noticed, though, through the woods there was a glowing light off in the distance. I grabbed my pocket knife from my pocket, a Winchester 13, with a red wood handle, and I still have it to the day. I then exited out the back door and walked to the woods. It was about a 3-minute walk from the house to the woods, and it took me 5. as I was SWAT stepping so that I wouldn't alarm anyone. I entered the woods and immediately found the trail in which, after about 4 minutes of walking, led me to an opening. At this opening was a fire. Around this fire stood 3 men. Not just men, giant men, all wearing worn-out hoodies. And chained to a log about a width apart was my little brother Ethan. He wasn't crying, but with a sad face, he was just scared. I ducked behind a tree. The men began chanting in the tongue I now recognize as Latin. These men did a strange dance while chanting. One who appeared to be the leader told the other two to pick up the log at this point. I was scared. You always heard the stories around my town of people going missing as they were believed to be a victim of Satan worship and were thought to be a sacrifice to Satan. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to step out of my hiding place and walked in closer. The men immediately saw me and dropped my brother. Now I could have called the cops, but didn't think to. One man charged at me and dove at me to pull a tackle off. Then I swiped my Winchester across his face, gashing it open. The man staggered back, grabbing his face. I noticed quite a bit of blood running down it. On the ground was an axe. The man fell back and the back of his head stuck into the axe, and I watched the life leave his body. This angered the second man, who ran towards me swinging. He hit me twice across the face, knocking my trusty Winchester out of my hand. I fell back on a log in which I picked up, and I bashed the man in the skull with it instantly, and he dropped. I looked around for my knife, but not being my night, as it wasn't, didn't find it. I couldn't find it. I began to approach the fire, and the third man ran off. I unchained my brother and picked him up onto his feet. He immediately fell. They had sliced his Achilles heel, and he'd been beaten pretty bad. I carried him to the car, and we drove home in silence, leaving one man unconscious, the other dead. We arrived home around 9:30 p.m. and explained to my mom what had happened. She gave my brother the poor baby concerned parent thing, but was still worried about me as well. We called the police, who found the dead man and returned me my Winchester. They said the man who was on heroin, and they believed the others were doing drugs too. They were never found, the other two men, so now like I said to Ethan, it's all about helping people and traveling through the woods to let everyone know about these satanic cults. We just want to protect everyone, and we don't want this to happen again. So to the two Satan-worshipping, smelly creep guys, for your sake, let's never meet again. Thanks for listening, guys. This is the Sinful Savant. Just make sure to hit that like button, guys, and subscribe. Share the video and talk to your family and friends about, scary stories. We all enjoy them. And just submit your stories, guys. And my email is in the info box below. Love to start I just want to really start getting my channel up with more user submission stories. And it's all about the real true stories, guys. So thanks for listening, and I'll be talking to you again soon.